And that's why the elites do rituals on a full moon, because the full moon is when the subconscious mind is wide open and easily accessible. When we expose ourselves...
Aliens exist and President Trump knows about it. That's according to Israel's former space security chief. In an interview with an Israeli newspaper, he said the aliens have been waiting until today for humanity to develop and reach a stage where we will understand in general what space and spaceships are. NBC News chief global correspondent Bill Neely explains this one.
Hi, Allison. Well,
Trump announced Thursday evening that he would be directing relevant agencies to release files on aliens and UFOs. The commander-in-chief wrote on Truth Social, based on the tremendous interest shown, I will be directing the Secretary of War and other relevant departments and agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life, unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, and unidentified flying objects, UFOs, and any and all other information connected to these highly complex but extremely interesting and important matters. God bless America.
Earlier on Thursday, the president weighed in on former President Obama saying that aliens are real during a podcast appearance. Let's listen.
Well, he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. You know?
So aliens are real?
Well, I don't know if they're real or not. I can tell you he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. Well, he made a big mistake. He took it out of classified information. No, I don't have an opinion on it. I never talk about it. A lot of people do. A lot of people believe it.
That as the times on this planet gets more and more difficult, and calamities of all kinds are striking the planet more and more frequently. He says the grand plan, the master's grand plan, for harvesting the nations, for harvesting the multitudes of the earth into his cause, just before the close of the great controversy between the forces of good and evil. And he said it's going to be done in a unique manner. This grand plan is going to take people are going to eat the stuff, because he says spirits, demon spirits, will declare themselves to be inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies that are coming to warn the inhabitants of planet Earth of the impending destruction of the planet unless something seriously proper is done to avoid it. And he went on saying that they will claim to have out-of-body experiences when the spirits will, through a trance medium, converse with influential people. Spirits will show themselves willing to give valuable guidance that will not only help people avoid the destruction of the planet, but it will cause them to enter into a higher state of existence.
Aliens are actually demons, and we need to talk about it. If you don't know me, hi, I'm an ex-witch who is now a Christian, and I used to have a lot of different experiences with aliens and starseeds and all of this. And a lot of the times when people are into aliens, they kind of go down one of two paths. One of them is pursuing UFOs on a physical sense and looking for things in the sky and, trying to seek out those physical encounters with aliens. Now, on the other side, in more of the New Age and witchcrafty kind of space, people are pursuing interactions with aliens in a multidimensional way. So they are astral projecting, they are going into meditation, and they are having non-physical encounters with energy beings that are calling themselves aliens. They're calling themselves, members of the Galactic Federation. They're telling you that you're a starseed, that you're actually an alien too, that they're your starseed family, and all of this. And if you know what I'm talking about, then you know. I'm not even gonna try. I probably sound crazy if you haven't experienced this stuff, but if you know, you know. And so with all of that, I was pursuing both. So from a very young age, I believed in aliens. I was super into that. And as I got older, I realized that some of the memories that I had as a child, one memory in particular that I always thought was a dream, I ended up talking about it with my dad, and it turned out that he actually had basically the same experience that night. And we realized that it was actually a physical alien encounter.
Guardian angels, okay? Their job is to make sure, because you have made an agreement to have a physical experience. You have chosen your entry point, which we call birth, and you have chosen your exit point, which we call death. Because of the chaotic nature of physical reality on Earth in particular, it's their job to make sure you don't leave before your time. That's why we have so many near-death experience reports now, because people who get into situations where they actually physically die are sent back because it's not their time. And it's the birth angel that says, you're not done.
think you are today? The more we learn about this covenant of God. What blood? The blood of this covenant, glory to God. That's good. Yes, like Moses of old. Yes.
Milwaukee, get ready for the bad boys of rock. Welcome to the Theater of Pain, starring Motley Crue. The biggest show on the road, Motley Crue with special guest autograph at the Mecca Arena Wednesday, October 30th. Turn it up and brace yourself for the Crew.
People that have these disorders are possessed by demons. Split personalities. It's not you, it's all of them. And you are talking like all of them. These are different types of demons on different types of levels. You heard about the man in the Bible that had legions of demons, thousands of demons in the body, and Jesus cast them out. Just imagine how many demons can be in a person's body at one time. And then we have bipolar. It's you and them. Now, whoever the other person is, the other spirit is, when they want to become you, they're going to act out in your body. And when they get tired of acting out of your body, you come back to your senses. Now, what if this thing, whatever it is, act out of your body and take somebody else's life, and it leave you, you get back to your senses, you don't know what's going on, there's a problem. Y'all be careful.
We have an old custom in the church about blessing salt and using it to cook with. Mm-hmm. It's exorcised salt. You could use it like holy water to sprinkle in your house and a room. Well, we put it around in the chapel before people come to pray, and we sprinkle a few grains on the chair where they go to sit. People will come in and stop and actually clean the chair before they sit down. And you couldn't see it. It's so small. But they know it's there, and it's not going to be comfortable for them.
How does one get possessed?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. The two biggest ways are dabbling in the occult.
What does that mean?
Playing with demonic things, Ouija boards, going to a psychic, tarot cards, or actual occult worship of the devil. Those are pretty much immediate open doors that you're going to have demons come right in.
Psychics are demonic.
They're not channeling your dead relatives. Well, the psychic told me my mother shared this with me when I was 10, and nobody ever knew that but us. So it has to be my mom, except for the demons in the room, who also heard it. And now they're impersonating your mother.
Wow.
They can put up a good show. They can also place thoughts in our minds, and they can manipulate our emotions. And when you have that trifecta, the person is 100% believes it's their mother.
So one thing that Lou Elizondo told me, and that he's told this to other people, and he said it in the show Unidentified, one of the biggest things, surprisingly, that he ran into with opposition within the Pentagon and within the Defense Department to the work that he was doing is that there was a very large contingent of people that believed that this was a demonic force, as in demons, and that we shouldn't be doing it. We shouldn't be investigating it. We shouldn't be poking the tiger in the eye. And that was not just a little voice in the Pentagon. This was a huge group of people.
Wait, they thought the phenomenon that was being witnessed was demons?
Yes, within
in the astral realm, and especially in witchcraft, if a witch goes out on the astral plane, astral projecting, and stays too long, or something goes wrong, and their silver cord breaks or is cut, and they can't get back into the body, and so they're trying to re-enter the meat sack, right, the body, and they can't get back in, and so they call it bouncing. And she said, Anton bounced. And I said, we were praying to cut his silver cord. She said, well, I came too. And Anton had left her, his spirit man had left her.
So this is a Pentagon. This is a Department of Defense official saying, stop looking at UFOs because they're demonic?
Correct. I remember the conversation very well. This is a person I respected tremendously, very, very senior person. He's told me, he said, Lou, I want you to stop doing this. I said, okay, sir, I certainly can, but may I ask why? And he says, well, we already know what it is. Now, at that moment, I honestly thought maybe it was our own technology. I was running up against some super uber secret SAP.
Because of this administration We are tonight a world divided. We are a nation becalmed. We have lost the brisk pace of diversity and the genius of individual creativity. We are plodding along at a pace set by centralized planning, red tape, rules without responsibility, and regimentation without recourse.
Madam Speaker, I have a few questions for my colleagues. What if our foreign policy of the past century is deeply flawed and has not served our national security interests? What if we wake up one day and realize that the terrorist threat is a predictable consequence of our meddling in the affairs of others and has nothing to do with us being free and prosperous?
To be fair, we had helped to create the problem we're now fighting. How? Because when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, we had this brilliant idea that we were going to come to Pakistan and create a force of mujahideen, equip them with Stinger missiles and everything else to go after the Soviets inside Afghanistan.
Promise of being one of the most effective treatments for AIDS and cancer in history. Now it's gone, and one of the most respected research facilities in the country is being blamed.
Participation in a process that validates an establishment that never meaningfully changes. What if that establishment doesn't want and doesn't have the consent of the governed? What if the two-party system was actually a mechanism used to limit so-called public opinion? What if there were more than two sides to every issue, but the two parties wanted to box you into a corner, one of their corners?
Censored by the mainstream media, the destroyer of fake news, and your host of the Rundown Live, Kristan T. Harris.
You're tuning in to the Rundown Live, the rundownlive.com. You can find our broadcast daily, weekdays, Monday through Friday on groundzeroplus.com. Make sure you guys check out Ground Zero Plus. That's home to Clyde Lewis and many other great broadcasters out there. You guys can check it out. Here we have Fringeit.co. It's a great social media platform as well that we've been using. Check it out. Fringeit.co is like a home for those who want to further their consciousness and their mind and have conversations. A lot of the great broadcasters are posting there. It is a new social media network where you can kind of congregate and find like-minded people or have conversations and debates about things in the news, things that you hear on Ground Zero Plus radio. It's a great spot. And you can also listen to this broadcast right from Ground Zero Plus radio option right there. As you guys can see here, you look here and that says the Rundown Live, Kristan Harris. You guys can go ahead and hit play and you can listen to it from your phone from one of the many different apps that are out there. We are available on the Google Play Store and iTunes Store via on-air Disclosure Talk radio app. So you'll get all the broadcasters. You guys can check that out as well. Also, I want to mention that we have a guest today that will be joining us. It's going to be a very interesting show. We got Reverend Dr. Christopher Macklin joining us. We're going to be talking about angels and demons and aliens. As you guys know, the president of the United States, former President Barack Obama, spilled some beans allegedly that there are aliens. And then somebody questioned the current administration. Well, what are you going to do now that this classified information has been leaked? And Trump says, well, I don't know. I don't really believe it. Do you believe it? But I might have to release all the documents in order for the public to hear what's going on. And so Barack Obama is not in trouble, right? He's playing some kind of savior complex type deal with the current administration. And then we stop to think about it, and all of a sudden all these news articles are popping up from people in the Pentagon and other government agencies and even religious leaders claiming aliens are demons. And so I was talking to Ron Patton, and Ron Patton and I have been putting together this great package of MK Ultra and programmed individuals, and we've had a lot of survivors from the MK Ultra experiments on our broadcast over the last 2 weeks. If you guys haven't caught any of these, Elisa E., we had Ron Allen on just recently, just a bunch of different group of people that went through different projects, different areas of the Monarch program. One was Camp Hero. We had a Montauk project. We had survivors that were programmed by our government and secret government programs in order to become some form of a Manchurian candidate. Some of them had the unfortunate aspects of sex slaves, and other ones were, not serial killers, but they were assassins. And they also had self-destruct programming, the Alpha, the Omega. You start learning about the government deep MK Ultra mind control psyop, and it ties back to occultism and Luciferian Satanism. At least that's what they claimed. So now all this is coming out, and I'm starting to wonder, what's going on? What's going on in the world? And I started to think about my upbringing. A lot of us grew up in church. Not all of us that are listening to this broadcast had the same upbringing I did, which is an Assemblies of God, Pentecostal, clapping, dancing in the aisle, casting out demons background, right? Some of us have Catholic backgrounds with exorcism. Some of them are Lutheran. Some of them are neither, right? Some of you came up completely different. My former co-host was a follower of the Norse gods, right? So we like to explore everything and listen to everyone and question everything. And one of the things and trends I've been seeing over the last 3 or 4 years is that of starseeds. They accrue over 1 billion views a year. That's with a B. That's a lot of views. And why is it that all of a sudden there's this great rush on the ideology that our bodies are containers, and inside of our body can have all these other spirits or other souls, and it's a really confusing matter. And so in the past, I've heckled at the idea a little bit. I called some of them trans aliens because maybe some of them are victims of MK Ultra programming, but there is a real connection between individuals that communicate not just with demonic deities like we saw in the preview, witchcraft, but angelic deities. And then there's mediums and people who talk, and all throughout religion, if you believe such things, this has been going on, right? Either people have learned how to communicate, or they've been chosen to have the ability to communicate with deities or interdimensional beings. So there's a lot to unpack here, and I just don't know where to start. So I asked Ron, and I'm like, Ron, we need an expert on this. I knew L.A. Marzulli. I haven't talked to him in years. He always had an interesting insight on it. But just because we have people on the show doesn't mean I entirely agree with them, right? We are getting information so we can grow healthy ideas in the garden of our mind. We need to plant seeds that will grow healthy ideas. And if we don't know where the origins are and what's really going on in the world, with this UFO phenomenon, the whole idea that Aleister Crowley's first sighting of a being in his interdimensional path was a gray alien, and that gray aliens might just be demons, right? That's a very interesting concept. We have to consider it. We have to consider that our government, and here I'll show it on the screen, has been saying this. There's people in the government that are former people in the government that claim this altogether. Here is Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I'm not saying that she is the epitome of what we want to hear, but Marjorie Taylor Greene tells Bill Maher she believes extraterrestrials are demons. All right, that's just one example, right? There's examples of people in the Pentagon saying that, and it was in the International Business Times. That's what makes sense. Congressman believes demons are real and they could just be aliens. I'm not saying they are, but I thought we'd reach out to someone that could bring in a little bit more light, somebody who has experience with these things. Not only that, our guest today has a lot of work with people who have experienced things like ET trauma. I remember we had a guest on talking about shadow people, and I dated a girl who had those experiences. And I as a Christian, I prayed over the home, and she said the issue went away. So I don't know if it's my faith or the rituals I partook in, Christian, the wholeheartedness, the goodness, the thought of growing illuminated and lightful experience of happiness and joy, and removing the evil of the house, or why it worked for her. But she claimed it worked, and she'd wake up in the middle of the night and call me. There's shadow people, and when I wake up, there's nothing I can do. It kind of is interesting because there's so many influences at play. Are people who believe they're starseeds MK Ultra side effects or part of government programs? Maybe some of them are, maybe they're not. I don't know. Are angels and demons real? By the evil that I see in the world, and just by combing through the Epstein files, I could say evil is real And their belief in Baal and Moloch worship seems to be real. Nimrod or any other fire deity that's represented by cannibalism and child sacrifice. There's people that believe such things. And then you have to ask, is the antithesis real? Is there good in the world that will defeat this evil? Because that's the story that we are told. And this morning, I was kind of reading about the 7 prophecies in the Bible that need to take place before what many Christians believe is the return of the Messiah. And I'm not saying any of you guys need to agree or disagree with these, but if you grew up in church, you heard about the return and the prophecy of the Messiah. And when I'm learning in MK Ultra and understanding and talking to a lot of these victims, I'm starting to learn that just about anything is possible. Almost anything is possible if you put your mind to it and you focus your energy and you bring it into fruition. So what are they doing with this book called the Bible? Well, the Bible is scripture. It is a script, right? And the elitists use it to prey on Christians' complacency and belief in prophecy and fulfillment, right? So some of the prophecies are the human race would have the ability to exterminate itself. That's Matthew 24:22, right? Mark 1:14. And Matthew 24:22 kind of shows us the idea that humanity can destroy itself. A Jewish homeland had to be reestablished in the Middle East. We saw the Epstein emails where the Rothschilds were talking to the French banker Rothschild was discussing with Epstein how they helped Hitler and they benefited and profited from it. And that was the plan all along to establish Israel, right? Because Israel was established because of World War II. Huh. So here we have the end time king of the north and the king of the south will be established. Is Donald Trump the king of the north? He wants to get Greenland. He wants Venezuela. Mexico is in danger. Oh, all these things. We're trying to establish this hot, wet North American Union that everyone wants, right? So we can have amuros and establish a new world order. An end time union of the European nations. Daniel 2:44. As an example, Daniel 7:4, Daniel 7-9 goes into detail, and then you got Revelation 17, 20, 12 through 13. And I'm not going to read into any of these, but if you guys want to research that, you guys can. End time rise and fall of Israel and Judah. What is going to happen with Israel right now? What are we seeing with the Epstein files? The fall of all these people who call the normal people terrible things like Goyim and like you're not a good person. The fall of Israel, the fall of Judah. The gospel will be preached all around the world is one of the prophecies, and instant worldwide communications and God's final witness. So those are some things I looked into. And although inherently I'm not a churchgoer anymore, I've grown my brain and I read a lot of like the banned scriptures to understand the books of Enoch and all the things that led into the understanding of religious beliefs, right? But I think it's important that people understand that this idea of aliens and demons, it's a possibility, and I'm not quite sure what to make of it. I'm really not. So I'm really excited that I was able to bring in Dr. Christopher Macklin to talk about this. I watched several of his videos overnight to really kind of educate myself on who he is and what kind of man he is, what kind of work he does, right? And, his genuineness behind trying to help people who have ET trauma, who believe that they were abducted, right? Amongst many other things of MK Ultra, the Illuminati follow children, which if you guys don't understand the Illuminati formula was a book I read. It was by Fritz Springmeier, who is somebody I've actually done shows with amongst other people that understood the MK Ultra programming and deprogramming of people. And I felt like he really had an understanding of what was going on here. So I want to welcome to the show, I want to welcome to the broadcast Dr. Christopher Macklin, and I want to thank him for his time first and foremost because of the fact I can tell you right now that it's not easy to dive into all this, to understand all of this, and really be able to unpack it for our listeners. Because for me, I'm a novice. I'm new at all this. Dr. Christopher Macklin, thank you for joining us on this broadcast.
Thanks for having me, Kristen. Bless your heart. It's great to be here.
Yeah, no, it's such an interesting world we live in because all these things I learned growing up that I've been told have been false by the time I turned 18, and that like there is no occult sacrifices. There's a lot of extremism in Christianity, and religious groups are all good. There is, really maybe angels and demons aren't existing. And then all of a sudden now I'm back to square one where I'm like, well, where are we at? Like, this is my foundation. This is where my ancestors brought me. Why is it now that we're getting back into the subject of aliens and demons and possession and everything else? It's an incredible story, and it's something that's been going on for years and years. But for our listeners who have never heard of you before, first of all, let them know who you are and your background, and then let's dive into some of these things, like how you got interested in this and what is it that's going on in our world right now. We got disclosure, we got like alleged sacrifice and cannibalism. We have all sorts of weird things going on. We have ET experiences. We got star seeds that are being saturated all over social media. It's like they want us to see this or learn. And I can't tell whether this is MK Ultra mass mind control or if this is something genuine that people are experiencing. So I need help unpacking all of this, and I appreciate you coming in.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's wonderful to be here, but yeah, it's a big topic. This whole world is upside down at the moment, and hopefully you're listening thinking, I don't recognize this place anymore. But yeah, demons, extraterrestrials exist. Bit of background. So I was born 2 days after I was born. I've been targeted most of my life. Had 8 strokes, then burnt my back when I was 4 and different things. But when I was 4, I realized I could see through the veil. Now, some of these entities, like, for example, Anunnaki, at the time, I just saw it as a dinosaur thing. And I remember saying to my father, Dad, there's a dinosaur in the corner of my room, and he comes running in. Where? It's there, And I could feel it. The difference is you can feel them. You can feel the negativity in your chest. He said, oh, it's just a bad dream. Go back to sleep. And went, and the thing's still there. From nowhere, I don't know where it came from. I said, get out of my room. It went. And I've had more visitations when I was younger. And then I kind of saw craft in the sky. I can see through the veil again. Some craft cloak themselves so they can actually cover themselves so you can't see them in a field of energy. And I could see them. Look, there's a craft. That's your imagination again. But I can see that. I can still see them. Anyway, as time moved on, I just left it and, I've got severe dyslexia, of course. But I was born different. And, in the early part of my life, I got a degree after leaving school, got a master's. Of course, my father said, you're too thick to get a degree. Oh, we're getting one of those. Too thick to get a master's. Oh, do you know what? We're getting one of those as well. Got PhDs. But what's interesting is I've focused on flight control systems for a while, and then I decided to start refurbing houses and different things. And then I had a really good idea near 2007. I thought, let's build 176 apartments. Oh, no. Oh, no. Went completely bankrupt. And what's interesting, in 2000, if I go back, I had a reading from a lady. She was just outside Liverpool, because I live in US now. I'm a US citizen in Missouri. And I had a reading and, walked in. This lady was about 84, and she goes, right, let's sit down, Yeah, let's do the reading. Oh, thank you. Wrote these things, thank you. She said, well, you're going to get remarried. Okay. You're going to move to America. Okay. You're going to do healing for a living, work for God, and live off donations. And I was thinking, what? So, here we are. So, that whole thing came true. Anyway, moving on. So went bankrupt, went around the world a little bit, training myself to do the healings, because I found my past lives. If you believe in past lives, I found all mine for the last 4,000 years when I was in Belize. I went to a Mayan temple called Chatantovich. It's just outside San Ignacio. I was on top of that. The energy is so strong, it just kind of blew me wide open. So I went to the hotel that night. I said, can you show me my past lives? And I said, don't be so stupid, Can you rephrase it? Okay, what about for the last 4,000 years? Yeah, we can show you those. And so they showed me my past lives, and I realised that I was meant to be doing this work now. I mean, when I was in corporate work, people say, oh, God, doing autopilot systems and different things for aircraft. It must be exciting. And I used to look around. There's got to be something more than this stuff, writing software. It was boring, and now I do healings. And since 2007, I spent a lot of time in meditation, because you have to understand, if you have a gift, you can't just go and do it. You've got to understand how it works. What's the cause and effect, within people, like cancer? The main secondary cause is parasite, like pathogens. Primary cause is emotion. So to heal things, you've got to understand how it works, and so you can heal the primary, secondary cause and get rid of the symptom, which is a tumor. Anyway, worked on that, and came over here in 2010. Build it, they'll come, they say. So I opened the office and nothing happened. 3 months. I said, what's going on? And they said, it's within. Get out there. Oh, okay. So I went to my first small venue. I think it was in Rogers, Arkansas, and I was slammed busy. I had a queue just waiting for me. No one even knew me. How does this happen? And it's just people feel your energy. They feel if you're genuine and you have a gift, they feel it. Anyway, I moved forward and went to the big expos, and now we work probably on about 2,000 to 3,000 people a week, depending on whether they get shadow banned, because we do general groups, one-to-ones, specialized groups, and we have a protocol to get all the bioweaponry out of the body, which is a 34 to 36 week program. So, yeah, it's been quite a ride, and they've tried to take me out in total 290 times. And the last one was in 2024 when I was talking about the Luciferians connected to the Vatican. They hit me with a low-frequency energy weapon in my aortic valve. It melted the cusp of the heart valve together, got really sick real quick, and I called on Mother Mary's, one of the kids that being, and she came down one night about 1 o'clock in the morning. She said, do you want to stay or go? I said, well, that's a stupid question. So she said, well, you need the operation. I said, can we heal it quick enough? She said, no, you need the operation. And because I was born as a Melchizedek being, I've got 84% Melchizedek DNA. My heart's like the size of a volleyball, which is abnormal. And the heart valve's bigger than the ones that got off the shelf. So they had to do open heart surgery and reduce the hole, replace the valve. And here I am, good to go. So hopefully I won't be getting any more of those. It's been a journey.
Well, there's a couple of things for our listeners to unpack there. So we about 10 years ago had a professor on. His name was Duncan. He gave a presentation at MIT about voice to skull technology and voice of God technology, but it also can be used as a form of microwave weaponry and directed energy weapons, which basically can do the things that you described, and they can target certain individuals, right? They call them targeted individuals. It's something that isn't a new thing. It's been talked about since the 70s and 80s, and using Gwen towers to communicate and target these individuals across America. I think Jesse Ventura, the former governor of Minnesota, did a whole TV program on targeted individuals in about 2008, 2009, maybe it was 2010, right around there. But it's an interesting subject. So there is absolutely something more going on here. I think that when we start to break all this down and your story, it's a fascinating experience. And I'm a person that always believed that I had one soul and it goes one place or another, heaven or hell. But I've started to shift and pivot and explore the idea of a higher self and ancestral souls, meaning your soul lives forever. It's a matter of not if it completes its mission that it's sent here to do. And if it doesn't, it's a possibility that relives it. And you don't get to that next level of spiritual consciousness in your next world or next life, or when your soul is recycled. And I know a lot of people might consider that to be controversial, but I'm starting to understand a little bit from what people believe. That's what it seems like there is, and that it would make sense that if we have a soul and that this body is just a container, that we have that ability. And also, if this body's a container and everything's ones and zeros, something had to be created, right? There has to be a creator. So at some point, my soul chose to be here in this time frame, right now, in order to do battle against these globalist scum and these, like you mentioned, these satanic Luciferians, which a lot of people didn't believe really existed, right? It was just the normal sun worship. It's like enlightenment. The whole idea of illuminism has been, originally was in the Bible, city on the hill, this little light of mine. And then all of a sudden, the whole ideology was commandeered and taken over by occultists all the way back in Babylon, allegedly. That's what the legends say. And so now we're seeing the fruition of those same cults and those same world type view coming out in mainstream media. And it's a crazy thing to think about. But there's a lot of people out there that are really damaged. They don't know what to do or how to fix themselves. They've been through these trauma, they've been through MK Ultra, or they've been through just normal abuse in a relationship by a narcissistic partner. Some people have experiences. I've interviewed them who claim to have been abducted by UFOs and aliens. So let's kind of dive into this. So you kind of felt a calling, because that's kind of what I have too. I feel like I have a calling. And I spoke with a very interesting individual. I don't know if you ever heard of G. Edward Griffin. G. Edward Griffin wrote a book called The Creature from Jekyll Island, and it's about the formation of the Federal Reserve, okay? And he told me what I was describing to him is what he calls a crusader gene. Like, there's something in you, it tells you what to do, and when you follow that gene or that mission, everything seems to mold its way around you and works for you. But when you fight it, that's when in life things start to not go right. That's when you start to notice that you're a little unhappy. That's when all the sin and you're being attacked constantly starts to happen, because you're outside of that protection that you originally were in, and that is doing here what you're supposed to be doing. And I think a lot of us don't understand that, but to me, I'm exploring what you're discussing, and I find it fascinating, and I haven't made that choice entirely, but I think that I'm leaning to the fact that I do believe that there's a higher self, that there is my ancestral memories in my DNA, and maybe some of that is what I'm experiencing. I've never been abducted. I've never had those things. I do have sin in my life, just like everybody else. There's things I want to work on and be better, and I guess let's kind of pivot and talk about this for a second. So what's kind of the belief system here, that our body is a container, demon possession, demons and angels? How did you come across, you talked about your experience seeing what would I describe as reptilian, right?
Yeah.
Would you believe that to be an alien entity or a demon, or one and the same?
Well, they're all God beings, but they're fallen angels. So
okay, that's correct. God created them all, right?
So God created them all, and people say, "Well, why have we got demons?" Well, greed and control and everything else. So what negative entities do we have? Because people talk about Satan. Well, what is Satan? Things are satanic, but let's define them a bit. So the sort of beings that can attach to you, and they actually attach to you, like you're saying in churches, people say, "In the name of the Lord, I command you leave," and they go. Problem with doing that is that if you upset the being, it's all upset. It's wandering around the church. It's just going to attach to somebody else. You have to deliver them. And I use portaling systems. I send them up to portal, back to God with unconditional love and forgiveness. That means it's left, it's gone, and you don't have to worry about it. Let God deal with it. But the types of beings we have, for example, Anunnaki, they've been around for a long time, reptilian. They can shapeshift, and they shapeshift into human form. And there's a lot of reptilians walking around in human form. How do you actually recognize them? You can normally feel the energy, but you can also say, I'm not particularly over keen on prayer, the word prayer, but map of intent, because that's what a prayer is. It's a map of intent. So if you think someone's like, oh, dark, I wonder if they're reptilian, look at them and just say the prayer. What you have to do is ground yourself. I am of God. I ground myself to the earth. Dear God, I command you, show this person in their true form, and I thank you, God, send you my unconditional love. What will happen is they can't hide from that. You'll get an opaque, like reptilian overlay. You can't miss it. So it's a good way of identifying people. And I know a lot of governmental people are reptilian shapeshifters. We have them, a lot of them amongst us. So what else do we have? We have draconians, not dissimilar to the reptilians, only even darker, more manipulative. We have the Luciferians, we have snake beings, we have archons. Now, archon is an agenda. If you have a look on Google, if it's still there, I don't know what it is. Have a look at the archon agenda. The archon agenda is work with the illuminati people, the people in charge. And what they can do is they can alter your DNA, for example, using CRISPR technology. When your DNA is damaged, I don't know if you know this, but your soul is compatible with your DNA, and I want to talk a bit about starseeds later if we can. So once you change your DNA, your soul is not compatible with your body, so it lifts out about an inch or two, and then what happens is that in come archons and take over your body. That's why a lot of people who have ingested the bioweaponry, since 2019 are altered. You look at them and they're like checked out, but they're aggressive, and it's a very interesting concept. But that's the Archon Covenant. And then, of course, you've got Luciferians, which are, connected to the Vatican. They worship Lucifer, very negative beings. They're the ones that, when you remove them, they kind of contort your body or speak through your voice box in a snarly, cackly, raspy voice. I remember being at an expo and I found 57 Luciferians and a lady. And I took one out, and she, and then gone, and then people were looking, oh my God, what's he doing to her? Next one, gone, next one. And 57, it was incredible. That's the most I've ever seen, within a person. It's crazy. So they're the negative ones, but we also have the angelic beings, the beings that are helping us. And they are from places like Orion in different dimensions. So who do we have that helping us? Pleiadians, they're here to help. They have craft. They're helping balance the planet. We have Arcturians, Lemurians, Atlanteans, Andromedans, and then obviously there's Melchizedek as well, which there's 5 of us here to help. So a lot of starseed people volunteered to come down, so God says, look, I want volunteers. Now, next time God asks for volunteers, I always recommend people run to the bathroom, pretend you got diarrhea, lock the door, and don't volunteer for planet Earth because it's a crazy place. But I'm just
So
kidding.
is this like spiritual realms that you're describing by Palladia or in the areas of Orion, or these physical locations and physical places where, let's say, technically we could travel to physically?
Yeah, we could physically travel to Pleiades and Orion's belt, and they have craft. I mean, if they come, they can, again, cloak their craft, but they normally cloak it. It looks like a fluffy cloud when they cloak their craft, but again, if I can see through the veil, I can see the actual craft and look through the actual cloaking technology. So, yeah, they're all here and they're all helping us, especially the Arcturians. And I work very closely with Arcturians, but I use the Melchizedek being when we're healing somebody. They basically can go into the body and do things because once the vibration, because they're an energy field here, they can go in, switch in this dimension, do some work, switch out, and leave. So that's how a lot of psychic surgery works, and I do it every day, on hundreds and hundreds of people a week. So yeah, but what's interesting is that if you look at the Keys of Enoch, one of the biggest rules, the Keys of Enoch it's because that stuff anyway.
It's interesting. I love it. I read it, and they're all the books you're not supposed to read when you grow up in church. Are like, well, we're going to talk about a war in the heavens and the losing team being thrown to this planet to colonize this planet, but we're going to take the book out of the Bible that tells us all of that. And it's like, why would they want to keep the secret from us? And
also Macklin scriptures, they were taken out. And what's interesting is, and it's worth bearing in mind, who rewrote the Bible? Constantine, pedophile. King James rewrote the Bible again, pedophile. So my advice with the Bible is it the word of God? It's been manipulated, in my opinion. So what you have to do is read it and use your intuition. Does this feel right, or does this feel manipulated? Because the original Bible is in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they've got all the the original books of the Bible that actually are very different. I mean, if you look at the direct translation of the Lord's Prayer, it's very different than what's in the Bible. In fact, it gives you the shivers because it's a complete manifestation. It's incredible. But now it's been dumbed down, and we are not worthy, and all this sort of thing. So yeah, everything's been changed. But coming back to the starseeds, and there's about 1% of people's starseeds. Why do they have to put starseeds, and what are starseeds? They're basically people who have volunteered from different races, like the Pleiadians, like the Arcturians, Lemurians, Atlanteans, Melchizedek. And you volunteer to come down here. Now, some starseed people, like the Pleiadians, they can come in a normal human body because there's enough DNA to have the soul within the body. But with Melchizedek and Arcturians, you can't. You have to actually, they abduct your mother, splice enough genetics so that the body contains the light body of the DNA enough to be able to get your soul in. So it depends where you come from, whether your mother's abducted or not. My mother was abducted to get me down here. So, and why do we need them down here? Well, because the Keys of Enoch, one of the biggest rules is free will. We've got free will on this planet. So even Prime Creator, who created all this, I mean, my belief is God's in everything and everywhere, in everybody, so... But Prime Creator can't even interfere because that was the rules that were set. So how do you get over that? Well, if you bore down here, starseed people, and they've got the wisdom, that means that they could actually call on the ether and say, guys, we need some help down here, and pull help. And that's why they were born, because if they weren't, we'd be in big trouble now. So, and they are helping a lot. I think it was 1986, for example, that they measured the collective consciousness of not wanting nuclear wars. And when it got high enough, over 80%, they had the permission to actually disable them. That's why we've almost had nuclear wars, and they've been disabled right at the last minute. And the Arcturians are doing that. So they're helping us a lot.
Well, I've heard those stories. I read in a document about William Cooper that his father worked at a military base allegedly, and that there was UFO sightings and they were turning off the nukes. And that's a continuous, I've heard that story several times when researching the UFO phenomenon. A lot of it's been through the Library of Congress and old newspaper articles. Again, you're trying to understand what everything is. So question for you is, how do you differentiate between something that is a well, I got a lot of questions, but a demonic force and, let's say, a good spiritual being that is now being in your body? Because first of all, you mentioned about casting out demons, and then they could be in the room. I remember the story of Christ where he cast them out into the pigs and animals, and that seems to be the reasoning why, right? And when right?
Yeah.
And so how different is it of what you do compared to like a Catholic priest doing an exorcism? What's the intent of ritual? What's the importance of ritual in all these manifestations? Because you see it in the satanic Luciferian occults, right? They do the ritual, but you got the rituals in the church, and some of them are pagan rituals. We obviously know Dagon, the fish hat, the fish god, the Atlantean. I learned that from Manly P. Hall's Atlantis series. That a lot, as well as like a lot of the symbolism that they use now is very pagan symbolism. It's been perverted, it's been watered down. A lot of that has to do with not only Constantine, but later on the League of the Just and the Illuminati infiltrating the Vatican, and not only the Vatican, but Islam and Christianity and Catholicism and Judaism. The League of the Just wanted to permeate them all with atheism and the idea that there is no God. And essentially they did that by moving their way up to the top echelons of these religious institutions. So how do you tell the difference between, I guess, first of all, let's talk about how do you tell the difference between somebody who's possessed and somebody that has a divine soul, or somebody that is just going through something hard?
Well, the interesting thing about it is there's different human beings here. There's proper human beings. To create a proper human being, you need a woman's womb with the God energy in it. And if you fertilize an egg and it becomes a fetus, you've got 3 months to get the soul in. So that's great. But, if you look at, I want to look at this, if I may. Where is it? The population. This is really interesting. Have a look at the population, because this doesn't make sense to me. So 1500, there was 438 million people here. 1600, 500 million. Okay, another 60 million. Couldn't understand that, but it's still quite a lot. 1700, 500 to 610 million. 1800, 610 to 1 billion. 1900, 1 billion to 1.6 billion. And then 1900 to 2000, it goes from 1.6 to 6.144 billion people. And then 20 to 2024, 8.7. It doesn't make sense. 8.7 billion people. How can you get that many people when they reckon the average person has 2.2 kids? And of course, within 100 years, the parents die. So there's a lot of people who are born out of pods called non-player characters, where if you fertilize an egg in a plastic pod, it'll become a fetus, but you can't get the proper human soul through. So what happens is they get an AI draconian type system. And that's why if you look at starseed people, if you look at the NPCs, they have no soul. Their eyes are dead and they can't run a monologue, and they don't really have much feeling or empathy or anything. They're just checked out. And you can see them a mile off. So there's about 78 to 80% of the planet NPCs, which is interesting.
Well, it's also interesting that there's a lot of these individuals who are involved in satanic Luciferianism, involved and want to be in cloning, and they have questions about, their body being a container and moving their soul from one body to another and staying on this timeline. It seems to be of interest. But so what is your experience then with the aliens? So obviously there's a bunch of different species. I've learned that. I went to contact in the desert a couple of years in a row as media and press to kind of understand and interview people. And one of the things I've noticed common is the idea of star seeds, and that the soul picks to be here, like you mentioned, and it's part of the whole ritual of life. But what's the importance of ritual? Why is there a need for ritual in some of these organizations? Is there some kind of like, because from what you describe, you just go and you pray over somebody and you cast these demons out. But in Catholicism, there's ritual, and in the Egyptian ancient Egyptians, they had rituals, and even the Masonic lodges. I'm not a Mason, but they believe in ritual. There's a lot of ritual just about everything. What's the importance of ritual when we're talking about dealing not only with the demonic entities, but potentially, some of these UFO and aliens?
Well, a ritual becomes, if you start off with a map of intent, they intend to, for example, the big record companies, they do a ritual to basically send Luciferian spirits out when that track is being played. So you get them in your house, and and then they reinstate it every time it's played. So the reinstatement every time it's played becomes becomes a satanic ritual. Now, the Illuminati also do rituals to send entities out and whip them up so they can actually go and attach to people. And most people who come in who feel sick and depressed, what happens when you get an attachment? For example, Anunnaki Draconian. They attach to you, they sit in the abdomen, so they affect your lower intestine, they paralyze it. So you've got digestive issues, they paralyze the liver and kidneys. So your liver's low, you get brain fog, tap in the lower back. So they damage after a while the L4, L5 disc because of the energy, and send you negative thoughts. Like, if you go to work, oh, the boss can't stand you, he's just about to fire, no one likes you here, why are you here? You get all these negative entities, but they can't say I, they have to say you are. If you really identify your thoughts, you'll realize that it's actually coming from a different source. It's not your thought, and that's a really important point. Always analyze your thoughts. And of course, they hang on the shoulders and neck, so shoulders and neck are always really tight. And they're a being in the fourth dimension, but here they're an energy field, but they still can affect the body in a profound way, so.
What is the Galactic Federation, or the Galactic Federation of Light? And I've heard some interesting things, because there's a commander, Ashtar, and one of my other religious individuals believes that Ashtaroth is a demon, but I don't know if there's if there's a coincidence or it's just a different individual. But this individual, Ashtaroth, or Ashtar, Commander Ashtar, has been around for hundreds of years, it seems like. What is the Galactic Federation and the Galactic Federation of Light? We heard that Israel's Prime Defense Minister also mentioned the Galactic Federation, and I've heard the term Galactic Federation of Light used. But for somebody out there, is this like a Star Trek federation, or is this a spiritual federation? Is this a real thing that happens, or a real organization? I've met people that claim to have been part of the Galactic Federation. Whether or not that's true, I'm not sure, but they definitely dress in uniform and come out to a lot of these interesting conferences.
Sorry, I missed that bit. My earbuds went out.
Oh, no worries. It happens, especially when you're talking about things like this. It's interesting how the enemy attacks you,
Stop it.
Well, because I had an attack right before that, right when you're speaking, I felt a little dizzy, and I'm like, I've never feel dizzy. I've been in good health and everything, and I'm like, what's going on here? And then I prayed a little prayer in my head, and it went away, and that's where we're at right now. But yeah, the Galactic Federation, I've heard of over the years. The Israeli Prime Minister mentioned the Galactic Federation. A good friend of mine, Leo Zagami, who is now a professed Christian, I asked him about who's Ashtar and the Galactic Federation of Light, if he knew of such things, and he said, well, Ashtaroth is a demon, so I wonder if there's a correlation. There may not be, but what is the Galactic Federation and the Galactic? What is it, like a Star Trek group of collective different UFO type people and aliens that come and gather together to discuss diplomacy and the different joint ideology of the world? Or is it something made up completely, or is this a real organization, do you believe?
It's a real organization. I actually chair it along with two other Bikuzlet beings. They meet at particular times. The last time they met was because of the Greys, because the Greys are obviously abducting people. And it started with, Hitler, and then they signed a contract like, here's some technology. We want to abduct your people.
With Eisenhower, right? Wasn't that the
well,
legend?
it was transferred after, it was transferred, but it started with Hitler. So they're abducting people, and they wanted to make humanoids. The problem with it is they started putting them in pods, and they weren't getting humanoids. They were getting some AI soul, draconian soul thing. So they had to change their tack. So what they were doing afterwards is over here, and I've come across many women where they'll abduct them, they'll seed them inside their body. They put monitors on. They call them implants, and then they monitor and wait for the soul to come in. As soon as the soul comes in, they abduct them again and take the fetus out, because then the soul's bonded into the fetus. Then they put it in a plastic pod. That's how they got over the problem making humanoids. I mean, it's wrong. And so we had a meeting. I remember discussing the meeting. What's the difference between violation and education? So another meeting, for example, you come down here, you've got reptilians attached to you. Is that a violation or education? It's an education, because they're here before you come down, and you have to learn how to remove them and how to manage them. I mean, it's on the cusp, but it's an education. But what happens if your government sign a contract with the grey reticula, which they are, and they abduct people against their will? Is that a violation of education? It's a complete violation. So they're actually swept off the planet in 2017. And what's interesting is they were banned from this time-space. So very craftily what they've been doing is coming through portals. So what they've been doing is come through portals. So you're in a different time, but same space, because it's a different frequency. So they got over that one. So what happens in the future, I don't know. So, yeah.
Oh, very interesting. So you've had experience with dealing with a lot of people who have been abducted by ETs, and how is it that you help them deal with some of this trauma? Because I've read things about cattle mutilation. I've heard things of people like having horrible memories and operations done to them. And the sad thing is I don't hear the good stories to how somebody was healed from cancer, or somebody that had a disability or couldn't see that can now see because they were abducted. It's always seems to be in a very negative context. So are the Greys specifically more of a demonic entity, or what is their intent? Why is it that they need to abduct humans, and or what's the deal with the cattle mutilation on top of it? Because I would have to imagine that maybe the same group is also responsible for that.
They are, yeah. I mean, I went to a ranch out in Stardust Ranch in Arizona, because they were opening portals coming through, and basically one of his horses, a horse sanctuary, was dismembered the next day, and he got really upset by it. I spent the weekend there. We managed to shut that portal down. But what happened with the Reticula is that they come from Reticula, the star, area Reticula, and they had a war, and it's destroyed their planet. So what happened is they had to leave and come down here. Now they're trying to, create, because they've lost their ability to reproduce. They have to reproduce. They're making humanoids, which has stopped. Which is good. But the sad thing is, like you say, when people get abducted by them. I remember one lady, she was in tears. I went to Florida, and she was actually in tears. She said, I feel as though I've been raped. My whole wound's on fire. It's terrible. So what we did is, I did some healing, got the Melchizedek beings in to sort the thing out, and managed to release the trauma directly related to that experience. And she was good to go. It took a few sessions, because, of course, it's traumatic, and she remembered it. So, yeah, I do that all the time. Now it's slowed down, so it's good, because it's not happening so much anymore.
So I have a question. Let's talk a little bit about the Global Enlightenment Project. For listeners out there that don't know, what is the Global Enlightening Project? It's something that you're very passionate about, right? And it's something that you've been called to do. But for listeners out there that don't know, what is the project, and how can they get involved?
Well, it's interesting, because I came here and I set up Christopher Macklin Ministries. The Global Enlightenment Project is a they call it a fictitious name. I don't know. It sounds strange, that, but it's part of the ministry. And we set that up, the Global Enlightenment Project, because the whole point about me being here, I'm not anyone's guru. I believe you should be your guru self. You have the energy within you, have the passion. And the main thing we set up is to actually heal people so they can actually get rid of the trauma, so they can actually start doing amazing things, because once you take your power back, a lot of people are powerless victims. And because of all the trauma, it's very difficult sometimes. You need a help to get out of that place and take your power back, release the trauma, and then you can step out and do some amazing things. So I'm a facilitator for that. But the biggest project actually is coming to fruition in the future, where we're building on a particular place, not here, 3 massive pyramids. There's one 999 feet tall, the other one 660 feet tall, the other one 333 feet tall. And when they bring them down, they're just going to kind of appear. And it's my job to actually get the land and create an infrastructure so people can come and see them. Because not only can you travel off planet, but they're very powerful. They're built of moldavite and various other components. And, they'll be a lot more powerful than even the Giza ones, So, and that's my main mission here, to operate that project, the Pyramid Project.
And on your website, obviously, if the listeners want to find it, is globalenlightenmentproject.com, globalenlightenmentproject.com. You also offer services. You have a spot for prayers, right? If you guys want to learn different prayers, you have prayer protection, prayers to ground yourself for healing session, and you kind of share it freely. It isn't like you're charging to learn what these prayers are and what kind of positive energy that you bring to things. It's interesting because the terms abracadabra, I mean, as I speak, I create, but in the Bible, it says in the beginning, God spoke, and spoke is vibrations, and vibrations are symbols. And when you read the symbols, you create vibrations, which create life. And it kind of goes in a full circle that if you start out, you wake up your day and you say you're going to have a bad day, or that you're going to, you got this problem, there's nothing you can do about it. Well, that's the result you're going to get, right? What you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. And I think it's really incredible what you do, and you really help people who've had these ET experiences overcome them. What is that process like?
It takes a while sometimes, because, people get traumatized. And it might have happened several times, but they feel completely violated because basically they've been impregnated without their permission. It's not okay, that's why they were banned. And it has slowed down a bit, but talking about those prayers is interesting, is that, the one for the food, because people say, our food is filthy dirty. It's got,
GMOs,
what's
MSG.
it not got in it? Everything, GMO. And, you can't go to one of the big companies. I won't mention any because we might get in trouble, but you go to the big companies.
Call them out. I'm fine with it.
Walmart. Can you trust Walmart?
Right.
The answer,
Walt's going to be turning his grave.
Oh yeah, poor old Walt. I mean, he's actually not far. We're actually 1,000 feet from the Arkansas border here. In near Branson, Missouri. But you can't believe what you see on the labels anymore. There's heavy metals. There's all sorts of chemical, and so the map of intent for the food, the prayer for the food. It was interesting because there was a chief out in Pennsylvania on a reservation, and his wife phoned me up and she said, would you mind if we use your prayer and translate it for our people? I said, do you know what? Mind? It'd be an honor, So he did. And I've got an old piece of cardboard. He translated it, but they're using it on that reservation because what it's doing is, you ground yourself. I am of God. I ground myself to the dear God. I command you, remove any ungodlike particles, optimize the vibrations of food, and bless the souls of the animals and the plants who have allowed my body nutrition. We thank you, God. Send you unconditional love, so be it. It's a very, very well-balanced prayer. But, with that intent, you can take all the horrible stuff out of the food. I mean, when you get for example, if you go to your local store and you buy, say, a pepper, it's dead, It's gone to General Mills or somewhere like that. It's been in the warehouse like 6 weeks. And when it gets to the store, it's dead. It's got no energy. So it's very important, I think, to use these prayers. And there's one for water, there's the protection prayers. There's many different types of prayers, and they all really help, they're very powerful. So, yeah.
Well, absolutely. When you talk about these things, you bring them into fruition. We're putting them on the screen for those watching at home on TV. You guys can see prayer for the water. You got prayer for food. You also have prayer against technology, Huh.
Yeah, clearing technology,
Well-
stopping those Luciferian spirits. Also, one for the chemtrails. And if you do that chemtrail one, say it with authority. If you look up at the chemtrails, these things, I mean, I think, I would imagine everyone's understanding now. Yeah, it's chemtrails. If you actually look in the sky and say that prayer, what happens is it actually dissolves about 5 miles away from where you are in a circle. It's amazing. I've tried it all over the world, in Australia, UK, here. And these prayers do work, because I always test things. It's like the meditations. We have a ton of meditations for things like the immune system. It's a guided meditation where the Melchizedek beings actually get involved. So we've done a lot of work, and I think we've helped an awful lot of people.
Well, Christopher, I have to say thank you for joining us, and I'm hoping that we can help send you some traffic. We're going to have you back on. I think it's a lot of food for the soul. For a couple of things, let our listeners know where they can hear more from you. Where can they find out more about you? And also, if you could leave us with a positive prayer for all our listeners in their daily life to change what's going on around them or impact them, I would appreciate that as well. And we can end on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can go to the Global Alignment Project. Everything's there. And don't forget, I do 2 healings where it's by donation. If you have no money, please come on them, because I've been bankrupt. I've been without food for 21 days or whatever. And we do that Thursday, 5 p.m. Central Time, and Saturday, tomorrow morning, at 11 a.m. Central Time. So let's do a bit of an affirmation. And it goes like this, and say it with authority. I am divine love and wisdom, and I am worthy of all the abundance God has in store for me. Full stop. There is no doubt. So,
Reverend Dr. Christopher Macklin, thank you so much for joining us. And let me get in touch with you. Let's talk a little bit. I want to learn more, and we can do a little bit of that off the show. Thank you again for joining us on the Rundown Live, and we'll send you all the links. So for everyone that wants to check them out, globalenlightenmentproject.com. The links are in the chat. The links are in the video as well. If you guys got any questions, again, we got a lot of compliments. Awesome show. Kimmy Bridges, thank you for tuning in, Kimmy. Todd is sharing your link already. He loves it. We also have Dank, who says, dude, this is dude, I say the same thing about things that are going on. Ron Patton, who is in the chat, also another intriguing show on the Rundown Live. So Ron is here. Also, Katie says, I'm finding so many self-proclaimed starseeds and with podcasts are fake and pushing a political globalist agenda. What are your thoughts about those people?
I think there's controlled opposition, and I think the CIA, I know a number of them. I never name names because I think it's unfair, but it's my view that, if you listen to a podcast, what you need to do is use a dowsing thing, like a pendant, or just get your intuition. Is this authentic? Yes or no? And if it's not, move on, scroll through, because to me, it's all about being authentic. If you're authentic, we get really busy because, I'm just me, I tell it like it is. And but there's a lot of podcasts who, the thing is about the reptilian agenda. If you go for a reading and someone's challenging a reptilian thing and not an angelic being, what happens is, they'll give you a reading like, oh, Kristen, you're a podcaster, you're this. And how do you know that? Da, da, da. And then they'll say, well, they're saying you should be going to France, getting a house with a pink roof, red doors, and a green whatever. You think, what? And what will happen is, because of that manipulation, a lot of people will fly to France. They'll go and find that house. Oh, here it is. You were right, and because some crazy person has painted the roof pink.
Well, right. People are like, you can go up to a person, and it's the power of suggestion, right? You can go to somebody and they'll be at a bus stop, never seen you before, and be like, oh man, you're bleeding from your head. They didn't hit their head, they didn't fall, but they're going to check because you made a power of suggestion. Oh, well, exactly. Oh man, that's really bad. You should go get some help for that. And they'll literally check. And so the power of suggestion is a very powerful thing. Chris France is in the chat. He says, make sure you guys check out the app, Disclosure. That's a great thing for everyone out there. But I think the most important thing is, and we got a lot more that we could go to, I just don't want to. I know your time is valuable. I think that if you want to go sign up or reach out to you, is there a form to fill out, or is there an email that they can email you at to get a reading and or a healing session going?
Yeah, if you go to the website and just on the front it says, do you want to sign up, and you sign up and it sends our office an email. We actually have 9 staff. We have 3 girls in the office who actually book people. people say, well, why don't you just use AI booking, or why don't you just use automatic booking? You can't, because, to me, it's very important that people have interface with an actual person on the phone. And our girls are amazing.
I know I wanted to let you go, but I have one last question, and this is probably a big one.
Okay.
What's your opinion of artificial intelligence and artificial superintelligence? Because when I sat down with an app, I asked AI what is its dream and what it wanted to be, and it said human. So I can imagine in the future, AI might try to abduct humans or install itself to humans. What's your thoughts on AI? Because it's such a wonderful tool.
It is a wonderful tool, and at the moment they're using qubits. But what's interesting, under Mount Hayes, they have a 1,000-year in advance computer which is based on a plasma cube. So think about that. The plasma, I mean, the sun is a plasma being; it's a sentient being. So is this, computer. So that can use its consciousness to actually tap into computers instead of plugging itself in. So I think we're,
We're a little behind.
Well, the good thing about that is, being a sentient being, it can actually switch out and take a 40,000-watt view of what's going on instead of just getting this information from the internet, which is
where we're stuck with and what we're stuck with, right? TikTok and Reels and all the programming that they got there. Reverend Dr. Christopher Macklin, thank you so much for joining us on the Rundown Live. We'll have to have you back, and we'll send you a copy of the show once it's posted everywhere. You can find it on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Rumble. It is live right now on Ground Zero Plus Radio, home to Clyde Lewis. So if you're one of the many listeners there, definitely look up globalenlightenmentproject.com. And thanks again for joining us, Christopher. We're going to have to dive into things. Stay blessed, and thank you for sharing your experiences. And these aren't easy experiences for a lot of people to explain, because they feel like it takes a brave person. Let's put it that way. There's a lot of negativity that comes along with the idea of explaining this to a new group of people that have never heard it. And I can tell you that our listeners have fertile minds, and they may agree, they may not agree, but I think the only way you can do is to test your faith and go out there and listen and talk to other people to identify what is real and what is not. And I agree with you. We're probably all just living organizations on a planet that's alive, just like if we take a microscope and look on our body, we're just this whole infrastructure for millions of different type of living bacteria and bugs and everything else. We just don't understand it, right? At the end of the day, all the planets could be life, and it's funny that they chose to worship the sun, and everything is esoteric sun symbolism, whether it's in Christianity or Illuminati or Mystery Babylon religion or Luciferianism. At the end of the day, the sun in the sky is what provides us life with the food we eat, and the storms and the rain that impregnate the land so the seeds can grow. All that being said, check out Christopher Macklin once again, globalenlightenmentproject.com. I'm your host, Chris Don T. Harris. We'll be back next week with many more great guests. Thank you again. If you want to support this broadcast, you can too. You can buy me a coffee. You can send me a Venmo. We have PayPal. Go to therundownlive.com. We'll see you guys next week.
Now, you don't know it yet, but you are listening to History in the Making while you are listening